Like every morning back in Ponyville, Spike was helping Twilight to organize the library at the castle, but weeks later to also help her at the school. Since Applejack were away for a couple of days, so Spike was going to take over her class in the tribe, and since he had taken over some classes before, so this would not be much of a problem for Spike. And even Spike were at first a little bit nervous how to take over Applejack's class. He has only so far only been teaching about in gymnastics and for Fluttershy, but never for Applejack or some other opponents there. But Twilight has said to Spike that she knew that he would make it work because since he has been a friend to Applejack for many years, so that would not make sense, wouldn't be much a problem for him, and he knew that. Even around the same time, around the lunchtime, after the first class with Applejack's lessons, Spike went with Fluttershy and Pinky to a restaurant nearby to eat some lunch. And since it was a sunny day, both they decided to eat some outside. And while they were talking, suddenly Pinky brought up the mention about her sister Marble. She mentioned that her sister has been feeling lonely lately. Since Smalltime moved to Ponyville, and since Pinky lived in Ponyville, and that the sisters Marble and Limestone still lives at the rock farm. But since her sister Limestone had found her boyfriend recently, that makes her almost leaving the rock farm from time to time to see her boyfriend. And that makes Marble to feeling alone, and most of all, feeling a bit hurt. So Pinky had asked her parents if it was okay if Marble could come over to Ponyville for a visit, since they haven't seen each other for a couple of months, and since Pinky has been quite busy with the school and Sugar Corner, and her parents has been noticed how much Marble has been feeling sad lately. They even had heard her crying middle of the night. So they both agreed to send her sister to see her. And when Marble was told about it, first she was speechless how much their parents were even allowing her to go to see her sister. But she was allowed to do that, and Pinky had asked if some of her friends could show her around the town because she would be busy at that day when she came. Since Fluttershy said she could, but then remembered that she has a lot of lessons in the school and she had to take care of some of her animal friends, so she couldn't. But Spike offered his offer to stand up to be Marble's guide in Ponyville. And since Pinky had already mentioned about several places in town, so it would be much easier for if some pony knew around the places around town. Pinky said that she was grateful that Spike could offer her his help. So for the next 2 days, Pinky was so excited to see her sister again after so long time. But even that she wanted to see her in person or in pony, but since she was not unable to do that, she sent Spike to the train station to meet up her sister. At first, when Spike was waiting, he knew how Marple looked like, and he even held up a sign for her just to make sure that she knew who was meeting her, because he didn't know if Pinky had mentioned to her that she wouldn't be unable to meet her own sister at the station. But when the train arrived at the station, Spike was told him to sign up and was waiting after almost the last pony had left the train station. Then he saw her, standing there with some baggage, and Spike said that he was going to meet her because Pinky was occupied for the moment, which Marble didn't mind. But then Pinky had also told Spike that he could bring her suitcase to the castle where she was going to be staying, since Pinky had already talked to Twilight about it and she was okay with it. So Spike took it with Marble to the castle where they met Twilight and Applejack. And since they both talked to Marble a little bit, even though that Marble didn't speak much, Pinky had already mentioned that Marble is quite shy and she doesn't speak much. But they both agreed that they were not rush her into feeling uncomfortable. So Spike showed her room, and then he asked her if she wanted to get something to eat, maybe since the train station, and she just nodded, and he took her to a small restaurant nearby. At first, he needed to know what she had, so he gave her a list of kind of food he had. So, and he ordered for them. At first, Spike told her a little about himself and about the school and everything. She just listened and nodded. Then he asked her some questions, maybe what she like to do, and how it is to live on the rock farm, and how her parents are, sort of things. And she answered this question shortly as much as she could. She was still very much uncomfortable and skinny talk much. But she noticed that Spike were really outspoken, really brave. He heard much stories about him after he tried to, how he saved Crystal Empire twice, and how he tried to help with Twilight and her friends against Storm King and and many other adventures they had over the years. And after they had left the restaurant, they went around in town to see what else to do. He showed her around. They met some of friends who she talked to a little bit about. But then Spike went to Sugar Corner with Marble. And Pinky was so excited to see her own sister again. Spike decided that maybe it was time for them to say that it was time for them both so they could spend some time. But Pinky said that she couldn't because she had so much order to make. Since there was going to be a birthday party the next day, so Pinky were unable to do that. Because since the Cake family was away for a couple of days, so Pinky had to run the entire store for herself. So she had asked Spike even again if she could spend some more time with her sister, because since she doesn't even know any other ponies in town except for her friends. And Spike said that he could do that because he had not much in the plan for. So both of them said a goodbye to Pinky, so they went back to the castle. At the castle, Spike asked her if she wanted to do something, maybe play some game or just reading something. Marble said that she would like to read, and he asked her what kind of stories she likes. If she liked Daring Do, or any romantic books, or any other types. And Marple said that she likes actually to read either more romantics or adventures or even just comic books. So, since Spike didn't mention the Power Ponies comics, and she just lighted up, it turns out that Marble was actually a big fan of the Power Ponies series. So, he brought her to his room and showed her his collection of the Power Ponies comics. And she was so even more excited because this was some of the issues and numbers of the comics she hasn't read yet or even seen. So she was so excited. Both of them spent a couple of hours to reading on the comic books and even discussed about some of the characters, how who could be the strongest, who could be the most best leader skills, or what of other things. When Pinky later that evening went to see her sister, she asked Twilight if she had seen her, but Twilight said that she hadn't seen her since they came back after they had been there at Sugar Corner. So they went up to her to Spike's room just to see if he was there, and they heard them both laughing. Pinky had never heard her sister laugh in some quite a while, so they both decided not to enter the room to let them be, because Pinky was just happy to hear her sisters laughing again. So the next day, Pinky was still busy. Pinky were still very happy to see her sister had been laughing again after quite some time. But what she was most of all, she was just worried about her sister. When she goes back home, she will be very sad again. And Pinky was right. Because after a week, Marble had to go back home to help her parents. And it's just shortly after she came back home, she felt very much lonely. Even when her sister Limestone was back. But she kept her distant. And now even her oldest sister Limestone has getting more worried about Marble. She was more worried about her. But before that, she didn't pay much attention to it because she was much high in love of her boyfriend. But now, after her parents had a serious talk to her about her sister, that she needed to look after her. And of course, even then, Marble was really heartbroken that she had to leave her sister Pinky so soon. But there was something else on her mind, and that was Spike. Even she had only known him for about a week, and her thoughts about him from Maud and for her sister Pinky, she felt somehow connected to Spike. Because during the time when they spent together, they were had a lot of things in common. They liked to read about comic books. They had the same interest for movies, music, and even a lot of interest in other things. And she did first didn't know, but one day she received a letter, and she thought maybe it was from Pinky, but it wasn't from Pinky at all. In fact, it was from Spike. It turned out Spike had started trying to get some interest in her since they had much in common, so they became pen pals over time. But even then, every time when she got Spike's letters, she felt so happy inside. She smiled and read the letter over and over until one evening when she read Spike's latest letter that she had realized. What if she had fallen in love with Spike without noticing until now? And how would her family react that she had fallen in love with a young dragon rather than from a stallion? So she didn't tell any pony about this, not even her sisters or any close friends. But they started to notice something was very much up with Marble. Because shortly after that she got Spike's latest letter, they had noticed how much happier she were when she worked on the rock farm, when she cooked with her mother. They had started to notice something was a bit off. Because only about a short time before, she was only sad and kept by herself. But now she's suddenly happier and always around with the family, no matter what happens. So they started to mainly question themselves what made this point to actually turn around. So Limestone in secret had asked Pinky by letter, asking her if she knew something was all wrong going on with Marble. But Pinky had no idea what she meant. Then Limestone explained in another letter in more detail. Pinky still had no idea what was going on because since she hadn't even talked to Marble since after she got back home. In a month later, Marple went back to Pinky in Ponyville to see her. But it turns out she had something else in mind. In fact, it turned out she was going back to Ponyville so she could spend more time with Spike. At first, she didn't know how her family would react that she preferred spending time with Spike rather than her own sister. But they would at least be happy that she had somebody else to talk to, a new friend that she could spend time with, so that she had something in common. But after a while, it turned out that she had actually been falling in love with her. But when she came back to Ponyville, only about a day earlier she's supposed to be, she saw Spike with Rarity, which she know that they help each other at the Rarity's boutique. But there was something else. They just been talking. Spike had asked Rarity if she how it was going between her and Fancy Pants, since it turns out Spike had told Rarity how it felt, but she didn't like him back in the same way, only as a brother type. But then Rarity had asked if Spike had found any particular specials on Pony yet. But Spike said that he didn't know yet. But he did actually have some sort of feelings for some pony. But he didn't mention it by name, only that she lives far away, and that they had only met each other for a couple of times. They were until recently by a letter when he started to get some feelings for her. And Spike didn't notice that Marble was hearing this. But she didn't first meant thought this that he was referring to her, because he has been writing letters to other ponies as well. Some to like Gabby of the Graphistone and some other ponies around Equestria. So from that part, she didn't know if he meant about her. But when Binky had said to Marble the same day about Spike's newest letter that he had told her about his secret crush, that this mare was the most beautiful that has beautiful purple eyes and very shy person on her personality. And then Pinky had put all pieces together and realized Spike had fallen in love with her own sister, Marble. But Pinky, she didn't tell Marble about it, because she wanted to maybe that she would find out by herself. But when Marble mentioned about this, but she heard about Spike talking to Rarity, she could not hold it anymore. Since technically Rarity didn't know, so that since Pinky technically hasn't done any Pinky promise to Spike. So in fact, this didn't mean that this was a secret that he was told not to tell anybody, not even particular Marble. So when Pinky told Marble exactly what she believed and what she told her, and Marble, she light up her lights like a sunshine, but realized and asked Pinky, how would she react if she was dating Spike? Would she accept it or would be against it entirely? Pinky was only silent for a short moment before she smiled and said that she would support any of her relationship no matter what happens. Because since she trusts Spike, she had known him for several years, he has always been there, even for her and their friends. But then she asked, what about the rest of the family? Maud, Limestone, or even their parents? Pinky said that they would all respect that and will also support it. So Marble had made the decision to tell Spike how she felt for him. Even it turns out that he didn't like her in the same way back. if he was meaning someone talking about some pony else. But Spike, that way, had heard about Marble's conversation with Pinky from outside the door. He was supposed to go there to buy something to eat, but when he heard talking, he decided not to go inside. He decided to walk away and wait at the park. Only a short moment later, Marble went out of town, walking around the town to see what else to do. She came across the park when she saw Spike at the fountain. He waited her, so she walked up to him, felt nervously, but acting as normal. After a moment, they start talking. At first, they talk mostly about the recent comic book that Spike had just bought and about the letters and what just has happened on the rock farm and in Ponyville and sort of things. But then, when Spike mentioned that what he mentioned in one of his latest letter that he may have found some pony that he likes very much, and she felt that her heart was racing faster for every single second. But then she admits it right away that she had a crush on him, and was ready to run away when Spike would say that he didn't like her in the same way. But it didn't. In fact, Spike said that he already knew because he heard her and Pinky talking just a moment ago. That made her blush a lot and realized the secret was all out. But he said that he hadn't told anybody, only her. And then he asked her if she would like to go out with him, and which she said yes. So Pinky, not Spike, he decided to take with Marble to this comedy club in town the same evening. And even around 4 p.m. when they went there, they had this amazing time, laughing to all these stand-up comedies, and even had just a great time, having something to eat. And only the next day, they told their friends what happened. And surprising to they were all knew that their friends were supportive. But Pinky told rather Marble she won't tell her parents about this because she know that Marble would rather do this by herself, which she wanted. So after a couple of days, Marble told Spike that she had to go back home, so, in which she didn't mind. And then, of course, Spike and Marble continued to write letters back and forward. And one of the letters that he had been told by Marble that she had told her parents about their relationship. And surprised to them, they were actually very supportive. They were just happy to see that Marble had found her special sun pony, even if it was a dragon, not a stallion. They were just happy to see her really happy again. And every time when Spike came over for a visit to Rock Farm, at the first time, he had a very much talk only to her parents for almost a half hour, mostly about just asking some questions about how we grew up in Ponyville, what he would like to do, what and so far what how much they have done together, what they like to do. Nothing much serious talk, more just curious questions. And they would just want to know more about Spike. And they actually had invited him to stay over a few weeks at the farm. And this was during the summer break. And since Twilight didn't need Spike's help at the time, so he agreed. But it didn't happen that over time when Spike stayed there, he felt more connected to Marble than ever before. Even Spike felt more home with Marble than rather from other places. It happened that the same year, around winter, when Heartswarming Eve was getting closer, Spike was invited by Pinky to celebrate the holiday with her family, especially with Marble, and he was actually accepted right away. And from what he was told by Applejack and Applebloom about their experience with the holiday with the Pie family, and he was expression a little bit worried about how if he would do some mistakes of their family, but he didn't. And since he didn't eat rocks as the Pie family, Marble, by the way, had made an exception, which her parents was completely okay with. Instead for rocks, he was given gemstones for soup instead. And limestone, she maybe thought that was more acceptable. I mean, she were really started to accept Spike part as part of the family. And even over time, as the years passed, Spike felt more connected even then. And one day, after they had been together for nearly 8 years, Spike felt was ready to ask Marble the big question. Even though that he had already told Pinky and Maud about this idea. Both were very much up for it. But Pinky, she was the most excited, but Spike had asked her not to overreact when all of this. Try to act as normal if nothing special to happen. And Pinky promised. Even then when Pinky would have a little bit harder to try to act as normal, but she promised to keep it up. And even though most of the time when Spike and Marble spent the time together that day, he actually proposed to her, which she said yes immediately. Pinky was so even more excited even then that she realized she only knew that Marble would say yes. And Marble had actually asked Pinky to be her bridesmaid, and Spike. He had two choices: Big Mac or Discord as his best man, and he couldn't decide. But Discord said he would only also accept to be the ring bearer, so Big Mac was asked to be the best man. And even after this entire wedding, they had this big party at the Sweet Apple Acres, since that was most the only logic place they could have to see so many guests. Even the entire Pie family had welcomed Spike part of the family. It happened that during the party that Spike that he felt very happy to be with Marble. Even after the party was over, both of them actually went to Las Pegasus for a whole week, and both of them had the most amazing time. They both had this great time there with enjoying the rides and even some magical shows and just or having romantic dinners. Both Spike and Marble had this amazing time. But then, after 4 years of being married, both talked about maybe there was time to start a family. And since that Marble's parents had asked about it, so they decided to maybe it was time to have a family after all. But they decided to adopt a family instead. Cause they turns out that Marble couldn't be pregnant. It was they tried it first over a year, but she couldn't have any couldn't have any babies. So they decided instead that if they couldn't have a family of their own, they decided to adopt some children instead. And since they were an orphanage in Ponyville, which Marble now lived with Spike, they decided to maybe go there to look if they could find any good children to adopt for the home. Even at first, they decided to adopt two daughters, in which they did. And at first time, both the daughters were really much very scared or nervous to having a new parents of their own. But after time, they actually started to love their parents, especially having a dragon as a father. That really was something that really didn't expect to see. But after nearly about a few months, both their daughters, had actually started to open up and very much showing they loved their parents so much. And they had a much of a great time with flying around with Spike on his back and everything, and they just having a great time. Their oldest was named Winter Blossom, and she was a unicorn, and she was really talented in magic, and she actually became Twilight's personal student when she was a filly. But she loved her parents still so much that she loved teaching magic with her teacher Twilight, but also spent time with the parents, reading books with them, playing games, and most of all, cooking with her mother. It turns out that Marble had a much strong passion in cooking. That made them bond even more. But she loved to spend time with her aunt Pinky, with baking and just laughing, or perhaps even make some pranks with them. But even she loved her sister, Aurora, Aurora Blossom. Aurora Blossom were also like her sister. But one day, Winter Blossom, when she was about 25, she had actually started working as a teacher in Poland, and her students loved her so much. And even one day, she fell in love with one of the stallions from town, and they even got married after only 3 years of being dating, and they had even twin daughters of their own. And their second daughter, Aurora Blossom, she was really very shy pony at first, but she really loved her parents and most of them all. At first, she was a bit shy how this, how to have a dragon as a father and an earth pony as a mother. But after how much she saw how much their parents tried to make them to like them, but even Pinky and Twilight had told them both not to overdo this. They can only make them even more scared of them. So after time, both they get used to have a dragon as a parent, and even after some time, Aurora Blossom, she loved her father's Spike, and it was really much they connected to. She loved hearing all about his past adventures with Twilight and the others, and she actually wrote them down. She wanted to be an author already as a filly, and in fact, when she was about 19, she published her own very first book, and it was a collection of stories that she had been told by her father and all the others of his friends about their past adventures. And the book by itself was very much about the best success. After that, she did continue to write stories either from her parents' past adventures, or some other adventures from other stories that she made up with. And she loved to be an author. Even when she was about 26, she had moved from Ponyville to Maidhaddon, where she started to work as an author, but also working as a part-time as at a small grocery store, where she actually fell in love with a coworker. And after nearly 3 years of being dating, they got married. And they even had, first 1 year, a son, and 3 years later, a daughter. Another 3 years, they had a second daughter, and they both actually loved it most and very so much. Even both Spike and Marble were very happy that they had found a special someone. Even when Marble at the time didn't know if she would ever find her true soulmate or never. But when she started to spend time with Spike, and after their penguin had been writing letters back and forward to each other for some time, she started to realize they had so much in common, and even realized that she had fallen in love with him. And she was very scared now if he would like her back or if not, and if Spike didn't like her the same way. She had never found her special son pony or have this amazing family with him. And even Spike was really happy to have found his soulmate as well. And even though that they both were not the same, but they loved each other no matter what happened. And even to have two daughters of their own, and even have a few grandchildren, made them very happy. And that's how Marble Pie and Spike found true love and got a big family. The end.